Hi, I'm Andrew Eliopulos, author of the YA novel, The Fascinators. I'm sorry I can't be joining you all at the Harbor Springs Book Festival in person this year. I was honored by the invitation. I have some questions now from the festival organizers I'm going to run through here in my Brooklyn apartment, which I hope is the next best thing. First, I was asked to introduce myself with something memorable, and the first thing that came to mind was that I graduated valedictorian from my high school class and gave a valediction that was entirely Lord of the Rings themed. The title was The Road Goes Ever On. And looking back, I think that predicted the fact that I would end up being a fantasy author one day. I had not heard of the Harbor Springs Book Festival before being invited. However, my grandfather lived in Michigan for a time, remained a Wolverines fan throughout his life, and I was excited to get out there. I saw some pictures of a pretty gorgeous lake view that I'm hoping I'll get to see in person one year or another. But yes, hope I get out to the Harbor Springs Book Festival when it's back together in person one year. The Fascinators takes place in a small Georgia town not too unlike the one where I grew up, except that in the book, magic exists, and everyone in the world is capable of doing it to some degree. However, since it is this small town, a pretty religious conservative town, the main characters of the book, Sam, James, and Delia, are sort of outcasts because they practice magic as an extracurricular at their high school. Most people in their town mistrust magic and mistrust them as a result, so they're sort of outsiders. And the book starts right when Sam is entering senior year and realizing that he might want to be more than friends with James, which is a problem, not only because they've been friends for many years, but also because they were supposed to be roommates at the University of Georgia next year. So even while Sam is trying to decide whether he should talk to James, try to figure out whether James reciprocates his feelings, James reveals that he got mixed up with some sketchy magickers over the summer before senior year who now are desperately trying to get something back from James. And so they're coming after James and Sam and Delia as a result. So you have that sort of scary external conflict, you have this more human, small-scale internal conflict, and those two things come together to make The Fascinators. The biggest influences on my work. So I grew up reading Diana Wynne Jones. I loved Edgar Allan Poe. I loved stories that had one foot in something magical and one foot in the mundane, everyday world. And in my work, The Fascinators, but also my first book for younger readers, The Spider Ring, I find myself mixing that same combination of magic and the mundane. And I think, I couldn't tell you why I'm so drawn to magic. I know that I love stories that feel like they're stories, and sometimes magic has that destabilizing force on a story. You can't forget that you're reading something fictional, but that just forces you to look at those recognizable human conflicts in a slightly different way, and so you get to shine an even brighter light sometimes on those small human conflicts. Is there a question that drives your work? So I don't know if there's one single question. I know that outsiders are a big theme in both of my books and will continue to be a big theme in everything that I do. Being an outsider is something, it was an experience I had for sure. And I think that experience when you're a kid or you're a teen and you're trying to figure out who you are and you feel like you're a little bit on the fringes of society, there's a lot that happens in that experience. And even when you have some friends, as is the case in both of my books, it's not like either of my protagonists are complete loners. They have friends who are outsiders with them. But that outsider experience, I do think, drives my work. What do I want the ultimate takeaway from my book to be? Well, I don't know if there's one single takeaway I hope you'll get from reading The Fascinators, but I will say, looking back, mining my own high school times for a story, I realized that I lived my 18 years in Georgia in a bit of a holding pattern. I was so tunnel vision focused on college. I went to the University of Chicago, which is pretty far away from Georgia, and intentionally so. And I think I was just so, focused on when my real life would start once I got out of Georgia that I missed the fact that real life had been happening for 18 years. And so my main character, Sam, who, I mentioned is going through some feelings looking ahead to college himself. I don't want to plot spoil the ending too much, but I'll just say, Sam has a holding pattern of his own that he's experiencing, and I think he does find the way out of it. So I do hope that teens who read my book might feel empowered to break out of any holding patterns that they're in and enjoy life around them, while they're wherever they are. Okay, so now we have a rapid fire round of questions, some fun multiple choice questions. I'm going to try to go through these in the rapid fire spirit intended. One book I'd like to read again for the first time would be In Other Lands by Sarah Rees Brennan. If I had to pick one body of water, would it be a lake, ocean, or river? It would absolutely be a lake, and I don't just say that because of Lake Michigan. Really, not an ocean person, but love lakes. True or false, Oxford commas all the way? Absolutely true. I'm an editor as well as an author. 100% true. I will always reach for a blank M&M, plain or peanut M&M. And in fact, it was kind of a problem in the pre-pandemic days how often I would stop for peanut M&Ms on the way into work. Favorite podcasts of late. So I'm not a huge podcast listener, but I did just start listening to the new one from the Cereal People, Nice White Parents. And so far, one episode in, I would definitely recommend that one. Books currently on my nightstand. Okay, so I just picked up The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. It just came out in paperback, and I loved The Night Circus, so I'm excited for that one. I have Alice Oseman's YA graphic novel Heartstopper that I've heard great things about, so I'm looking forward to reading that. And then I'm midway through Stars and the Blackness Between Them by Junauda Patris, and really loving that book so far. And as you can tell, I read multiple books at once. I always have, always will. But so far, yeah, definitely going to try to finish The Stars and the Blackness Between Them before moving on to the other two because it's fantastic. I will take blank food every day of the week. I will take Italian food every day of the week. I've been ordering from the local Italian restaurant a few too many times during the pandemic. I do my best reading at blank. I do my best reading at night, right before bed. And that's everything. So again, I'm sorry I can't be there in person to enjoy the Harbor Springs Book Festival with you all, but I hope another year I'll get to see that gorgeous lake view in person. And until then, I hope you're all staying inside, staying healthy, and reading great books.